Hello everyone. If everyone could kindly take a seat, we'll get started. Good afternoon, distinguished guests and dear media friends. Welcome to CCG Global Dialogue Events. I'm Lo Yan, the Communication Director of CCG. Today our guest is Ms. Gabriela Ramos, the Assistant Director-General of UNESCO. It's a great honor to have you here. Now, let's warmly welcome Dr. Wang Huiyao, President of CCG, to deliver the welcome remarks and guest introductions. Please.
Your Excellency, Madame Gabriela Ramos, and also distinguished guests and also ladies and gentlemen. It's really a great honor for me to be here at CCG to welcome Gabriela Ramos, the Assistant Deputy Director General of UNESCO, that visiting CCG, but also visiting China, and also she's going to give us a great speech and also a discussion, and also we're going to have a dialogue with her. So it's really a great honor for me to welcome her and to be at this very special event. CCG Global Dialogue Series has been carried out in the last 5 years, actually. We have a dialogue with hundreds of world leaders, opinion leading experts, but also politicians, statesmen, foreign ministers, and of course government officials, but also think tank leaders. And we're very pleased today that we have another important guest that added to our edition of CCG Global Dialogue series. I'd like to first invite Madame Gabriela Ramos. Madame Gabriela Ramos is, of course, a very distinguished Mexican economist and diplomat, and currently serving as Assistant Director General for Social and Human Science at UNESCO. As we all know, UNESCO is a well-known UN organization and has a great impact throughout the world. So in her capacity, she leads initiative aimed at fostering inclusive and, of course, peaceful societies with a focus on social inclusion, gender equality, youth development, anti-racism, and of course the ethic of emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and neural technology. So these are very, very new areas that she's demonstrated a great leadership on that. We have a very impressive CV of Madame Ramos. She earned her bachelor degree in international relations from University in America and a master degree in public policy from Harvard Kennedy School. And of course, she has a very impressive career. Madame Ramos began her career advising Mexican ministers of foreign affairs and budget, later co-founding a consultancy enable voting rights for Mexicans abroad and protect Lagom San Inago biosphere. Of course, I began to know Madame Ramos when she was as working at the OECD, a very important organization based in Paris. She actually worked as a director for OECD Mexican office, and then she contributed to the major reforms, including the Sego Popular Health Program and Mexico competition laws. And of course, most important, at OECD in Paris, she became cabinet director to the Secretary General Jose Angel Gurria and the organization's first G20 Sherpa, which she often attended G20 summits on behalf of also OECD, and leading the initiative like inclusive growth and oversee strategic reforms and expand the budget by 68% and 88 members countries. So very impressive. I remember quite a few years back when OECD hosted the first international immigration minister meetings. I accompanied the Chinese Minister of National Administration was attending that meeting. we will be well received by all the OECD leaders, including Madame Ramos. And of course, there's more. Madame Ramos was, after a successful career at OECD, she was appointed as Assistant Director-General for Social and Human Science and UNESCO in 2020. So that's very, very important, another organization. And since then, her term has been marked by transformative initiatives aimed at reinforce UNESCO's roles at the intersection of science, policy, and ethics. So there's a quite a big achievement under her leadership. So one of the key achievements of Madame Ramos was the drafting and adoption of the recommendation for the ethics of artificial intelligence in November 2021 by UNESCO 193 member countries. So this is really important, as we know that AI is becoming very important subject of the current international arena, and also gets so much attention. But as a global organization, like under the UN, UNESCO has taken this groundbreaking work and first of its kind globally to provide ethical guidance and development for the deployment of AI. So, please, Mr. Zhen, yeah. So this is really very impressive. So by the mid of 2024, over 60 countries has incorporated the principle into their institution and legal frameworks, facilitated by the readiness of assessment method developed under the Ramos guidance. So countries like Chile and Morocco has used those recommendations to draft AI policies and strategies, setting a good example for other countries worldwide. Additionally, the initiative of Women for Ethic AI was launched with leverage of the knowledge of the leading artificial intelligence experts to advance gender equality in the AI arena. As a key event in 2025 under the UNESCO SHS patronage, the global forum of ethic of AI, science and technology was to promote the behavior change and also for those areas. And of course, the climate action was also taken. The 2024 edition of the World Philosophy Day and also Philosophy Building the Social Gaps highlight philosophy's vital role in mending the social fabric and foster more inclusive society. So I think there's the list goes on. I mean, for Madame Ramos' achievement. And also she's a great expert on the civilization, has a very emphasized importance of intercultural dialogue as a cornerstone for building sustainable and inclusive society. She advocates for dialogue as a means to understand each other, cooperative, and develop trust, especially in the face of global challenges such as climate change, pandemic, and rising social and economic inequalities. So I think this is really a great occasion that we have invited Madame Ramos to deliver a speech at the CCG and have dialogue with us. So her vision for UNESCO underscored the need for inclusion, innovation, and impact. She calls for greater access of quality education, ethical regulation of science, technology, and a strong influence in global forums to improve quality of life for all. So I have known Gabriela for a number of years. I remember we were engaged in this dialogue on civilizations, but also both of us was on the steering committee of the Paris Peace Forum. And also I'm very pleased to learn that you are running for the candidacy of the Director-General of UNESCO as one of the one of the strongest candidates for running this position. So we really hope that your visit to China is very productive, and we hope your running for this candidacy will be successful. So without further ado, we would like to invite Madame Gabriela Ramos to give us a keynote, and then we'll engage a dialogue with you. Let's welcome.
Thank you so much, Henry, and great to see you and to engage in this discussion. I'm accompanied by my colleagues from the Mexican Embassy, Francisco and Antonio, good friends, Ji Sheng, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's great to be in CCG, the place to be. I'm looking at all these amazing people that you have had all over the years, and this is really a center that promotes these exchanges that are so necessary today. I come now as a candidate of Mexico for the Director-General of UNESCO, but as Henry mentioned, I have been in the multilateral system for many years, trying to make institutions count, trying to ensure that institutions both at the OECD but now at UNESCO deliver solutions for the challenges we face. And I feel one of those challenges, of course, is how do we ensure that the impressive technological transformation that we are experiencing day by day delivers more inclusive and sustainable worlds. And I feel this is where I would like to start, because at the end, international institutions are now under a lot of pressure. Multilateralism is being called into question. Some major powers are preferring the bilateral or even the unilateral option, when we know that we are so interlinked, we are so connected. All of the challenges that we face, be it inequality or climate or migration or aging or the environment, technologies are global, transcend frontiers, and therefore we need more multilateralism and not less. But that multilateralism needs to be effective. And I feel this is another angle. I just wrote an article at Le Grand Continent, which is one of the very prominent journals in France, reflecting how do we ensure that we are not all the institutions packaged together and put in the waste basket. Because at the end, there are differentiated impacts, there are differentiated outcomes, and there are differentiated successes of these institutions. Yes, there's a lot of need to reform many of the UN system. We have been dealing with it. Needs to be more agile, needs to be more lean, needs to be much more impactful. But there are so many good stories of effective multilateralism that we need also to recover and use it to promote and say, hey, no, not everything is wrong. There are some things that are working well. And one of these experiences is what Henry mentioned to you. UNESCO is very well known for the cultural sites, the World Heritage sites. It's very well known for education. It's less known for science. But we actually were the institution that was established in 1948, one of the oldest institutions of the UN system, to promote cooperation through education, culture, and science. And we have this mandate to promote investment in science, to protect scientists. Again, the environment is not so great everywhere, and to ensure that scientific endeavors are allowed, open, financed, and that we build knowledge that is not constrained by any other issue than the need to reflect on how do we advance understanding of the challenges. And one of the elements of UNESCO is that it has the ethics of science, the ethical framework for science and developments. And this is important because you remember that the Second World War, there were a lot of research that was not very ethical. And therefore, this is the idea behind this mandate of UNESCO. And we were the institution that when the progress in the human genome was so fast, that then we could even clone ourselves or clone the chips. Dolly was cloned. And UNESCO came out with a very powerful message that I feel framed the discussion very nicely of all these technologies, which is technologically you can do those things. You can clone, you can repeat, you can provide, you can morally, ethically, should you? So it's just a question, should we? And this is the same understanding that we carried forward when working on artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence, of course, is this capacity of the computers because of massive data gathering, because of the computer power, because of the iCloud, because of so many investment that countries like China and the US particularly have made. The computers can really produce intellectual outcomes that sometimes are even much more complex than what humans can make. But the reality, again, is that great that we have machine learning, great that we have generative AI, great that we have agentic AI, great that every now and then we are seeing the exponential increase of these capacities, and we are in awe of the possibilities of what we can do with these technologies. But again, it's not about the technologies. It's about how do we use those technologies to build more inclusive societies. And if we take a picture of where we are in terms of the technology, of course, in November 2022, generative AI came in. It's impressive. It's impressive because if you think about it, now we are very used to these things. But the fact, these are technologies that learn from themselves. So if you, in one corner of the world, are using one of these systems and you teach them by interacting with them on some information, on some issues, all the world will know about it. And therefore, it's just impressive. But then you have the reasoning AI, no? Or this agentic AI, which is just also so impressive because I can be replaced. You can be replaced. The Director-General of CCG can be replaced by an agent. They can do it. But again, how do we frame the issues that we ensure that it's not just the technological breakthroughs that are so amazing, but the frameworks that we have as government, as institutions, as humans to frame it. I'm very happy because Yisheng is here with us. You were part of the group that developed the recommendation on the ethics of AI. And the beauty of the way the recommendation, this global standard, was developed is that it was not just the economist. I was with the economist at the OECD, and it was usually the staff that would draft the things and then put it to member states to discuss it. In UNESCO, it is different. And I feel that the way this was framed is super interesting because we gather a group of 24 experts from very different disciplines. And this is amazing. Because, of course, we have the geeks, we have the engineers, we have the economists, we have the financiers, but we also have the philosophers. We also have the psychologists. We also have the anthropologists. And you know what happened? Then you have a well-rounded human experience together to think about what do we need the technologies for. It's not what the technologies can do, but what the technologies can do for us, for our problems, for our needs, for our ambitions. And therefore, the draft is a fantastic piece because the call is to say, let's step back, and instead about talking the technology, let's talk about us. Let's talk about what kind of world we want, a world where we respect and promote human rights and human dignity, a world where we have fair outcomes, sustainable outcomes, where we advance gender equality, and then a world where these values that were defined by this group as such representative of all the regions in the world translate into principles, transparency, accountability, rule of law, all of the principles that all advanced societies have provided themselves to organize their living. And then the beauty is that, because I'm a policy wonk, when I arrived, I said, all of this is very good, but where are the policy chapters? We need to translate that into policies, into decisions that governments can take. And therefore, we look at the ethics of AI in education, in culture, in the labor markets, in the economy, in the environment, gender equality, communications, education, etc. And therefore, it really turned into a standard that was very actionable. People could really reflect, what do we mean by this? And then we went to step forward because we produce, as we have this divergence, no? You have the US and China producing 80% of AI developments, large foundational models, frontier developments, the next generation and the next generation, and not only about artificial intelligence, but all the converging technologies, neurotechnology and synthetic biology, and all of the other developments that are also empowered by artificial intelligence. You have few countries that are doing so. But then you have all of the rest of the countries that are users. But then you also have 30% of the world that has no access to stable internet. And you have a large majority of the citizens of the world that don't know how to use these things, or that might be captured by the wrong use of the technologies with very difficult issues like misinformation or disinformation, or the impact of social networks in our youth, in our people, etc., etc., etc. So what we decided was to do a diagnostic tool, again, not to talk about the technology, but how countries were prepared or not to use those technologies, and more importantly, how are they prepared to govern the technologies for themselves? Because of course this is a global conversation, but the ones that are going to put the rules whenever data privacy is abused, or whenever we are engaging in exchanges that are not right with the platforms, there needs to be somebody that is calling the attention. And that's why this initiative became very interesting, because you have countries from the Netherlands and India, Mexico, Brazil. China just developed the readiness assessment. Two countries like Mozambique or Malawi or Cambodia. And the beauty is that each one of them sit by themselves with their experts, with their business sector, with their academia, with their civil society, to discuss what do they need the technologies for, what is their vision of the technology, and then to develop the rules to try to shape it. And I'm sure that you have heard a lot about this false dilemma regarding whether regulations kill innovation, or you only can be innovative if there is no constraint, which I think is completely false. And therefore we are trying to move from that conversation to one that is more organized, in the sense that there are a lot of policy tools to shape the technologies. And let me just take you to some of the issues. This is the most amazing progress in scientific breakthroughs and innovation, because it's scientific developments that then turn into market developments that are used by the business or by our societies. One question that we should be asking ourselves is how much our countries are investing in R&D. And then just forget about if we are in the world of AI or not. How much our countries are really investing in research and development. And you have from countries like China or Korea or the US that are from 6 to 4 to 5 percentage point of GDP, to countries in other regions that invest less than 0.3 or 0.2 or 0.1. So it's not about whether there are big tech wanting to sell everything. It's about how do you prepare yourself to be better to take advantage of these technologies. The skills, how do we develop the skills? I was always surprised to see, for example, that when President Biden delivered their executive order to frame the technologies, one of the elements of the US was talent attraction, retention, and formation. So if the US, who is the leading force in these technological breakthroughs along with China, is putting the focus on talent, I guess that we all should be looking into investing in talent. And the other part, which is the most one of the most interesting for me, is the capacities of governments to use the technologies for good. When you talk to the governments and you go around, they don't want to become the experts on how the generative AI function, or how the open source or not open source of the DeepSeek happened or didn't happen. That's not what they want to know. What they want to know is how they can ensure that they can develop a model that will help them to manage their health sectors, their education sectors. And this is where the whole thing can be turned around. And this is one of the impacts of this work that UNESCO has done, that have providing the sense of agency to each government to understand that it is them that can turn the thing into something that is useful. And that means investing in the capacities of governments to understand these technologies, developing the regulations and the legal frameworks. I just got to see that 3 years ago, Senator Peterson from the US was just pushing a bill to ensure that those people that are in the public procurement systems of the US will know what AI is, which is very interesting, but it's true. If you are going to go to the market to buy some platforms or some programs to do things, you need to know how to protect the thing. So the fact is that the investing in our own capacities to use the technologies is very important. And I don't want to belittle the fact that we need to know the technologies. That's true. Because with each generation of the technological breakthroughs, the answers that we thought we have found for some challenges change completely. If you remember, when we were looking at the earlier models of artificial intelligence 10 years ago, there were research saying 50% of the jobs are going to disappear, no? Then we enter into something that is not about the jobs, it's about the tasks. So it's not the whole category, but the task that will be replaced and automated by artificial intelligence. And then we thought, yes, is the task that can be codified. So it will be middle-level skills that are going to be completely replaced. And everybody was very worried because it's going to be the typist, the one that makes the reservation, the thing that is repetitive is going to be codified, and forget those jobs are going to disappear. Well, we were developing policies to protect those people, to upscale them, to invest in their capacity, to do something else for redeployment, for organizational moves to ensure that these things do not hurt people. But then with generative AI, it comes. The level of capacities of these technologies are way higher than just repetitive tasks. And then we come to realize that it's going to be replacing also the white-collar workers. And it might be replacing the lawyers, or might be replacing some engineers, because the technologies can code. And as I said, every now and then, the capacities are increasing. And then new challenges come, because the challenges of being discriminated by an algorithm that is being used to take a decision was almost pushed aside because of the safety challenges. And you remember the AI Safety Summit in the UK, because the reality is that if you have this open source and the capacity of anybody coding, then it can be misused also, and it can be very dangerous. And that's why the Secretary-General established his advisory board, and then we work to get the digital compact. At the end, it's about grappling with the issues. I feel that because of the work of UNESCO, more countries are better prepared to understand how the technologies work, and more importantly, what they need to do. One of the most proudest moments I have as Assistant Director General was when the Minister of Cambodia came. I have not met him because, of course, 70 countries are being worked with teams that we have all over the world, so it's not that I travel to each of the countries, but he was there in the AI Action Summit in France, and he came to see me, and he said, I want to thank you, because you know this work that I did with UNESCO has allowed me to know what I need to do. So that's fantastic. If a minister come to you and say, your work has helped me to understand what I need to do, then we have delivered. I think that's the way it goes. So this is the kind of experiences that I think it would be important that we try to reproduce, that every time we get together in the global community with 194 very different voices around the table, that we get this commitment to frame the issues in the right way. I think that that's exactly what the world has done with the climate agreement in Paris, with the national determined contributions. That's what we did in the OECD when we reformed the international tax system to avoid tax evasion and tax erosion. That's what we have done when we go into rules for gender equality. The only point is that agreements are fantastic, implementation is much better. And this is my experience in life. And so I think I will leave it there so that we can proceed to discuss how to ensure a future with AI that is more sustainable, but also how do we ensure that the international institutions that are called to address these issues globally can continue delivering for good. Thank you so much.
Now we will move to the dialogue session. Let's invite Dr. Henry Wang Huiyao and Mr. Ramos for the discussion, please.
Good. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Loyan. So great. We have all the a great audience here. We have also expert Professor Zhang, Professor Zhen, and also embassy staff and many think tank experts and media friends. So. Madame Gabriela Ramos, you made a very good speech just now and outlined a lot of your perspective and ideas how global governance should be carried out, and also AI development, and what's the importance and the contribution there. So my first question would be that, I know you have been with OECD for almost 20 years. And also as chief of staff, G20 Sherpa, and also you mentioned about many things achieved at OECD, like global minimum tax proposal, right? That was really a very, very important initiative. And then for the last several years, you were at UNESCO, and of course looking after many areas, but also pioneered this ethical foundation for global governance on AI. So those are really need a lot of vision and need a lot of, as you mentioned, implementing leadership and the implementing power. So probably from your experience for the last 2 or 3 decades on the global institutions, what's your really thoughts on how we can really better governance in the multilateral system, how you managing different countries' perspective, and how you to really incentivize and work with them and with member countries, but also to push the agenda forward. So you must have a lot of experience, ideas, thoughts to share with us. So that would be my first question: how the global governance and multilateral innovation that you've been engaged for the last several decades that can really benefit in the future development of global governance and multilateral system. So, Madam Ramos, please.
Thank you so much for that question, because it's true that I'm looking there. You have Arantxa Gonzalez, who was my partner in. She was the WTA Sherpa, and I was the OECD Sherpa. And she told me something that is very interesting. She said, the institution live the life of those that inhabit them. So it's the quality of the leadership of the institutions, is the quality of the engagement with member states, is the quality of the relationship, it is the trust. And at the end, it's about people. It's so interesting because we can think about grandiose schemes and infrastructure, and it's about people. It's about having the good representative around the table that will understand the challenge, that will be committed to find the solutions together, that will be subject to the consensus rule that sometimes is difficult for big powers, because in the consensus rule, you never get 100% of what you want. You will always get 80 or 70 or 60. And therefore, I feel it's very important to have this quality of the environment. And you have quality of that environment when you have trust and when you feel that going through the multilateral setting will deliver better than just going by yourself. And I have been lucky, I might say, that I have, or probably it's also due to the work of my teams, myself, and the leaders that I work with, to have environments and when things were possible. We saw it. First and foremost, what happened with this recommendation? How did it happen? Because for me, it's a best practice, and we should always learn from best practices. First, there was a strong leader. I was very strong. I was pushing, and but then you have this group of experts that gave a lot of trust, because countries felt, in the way the thing was done, that we have representatives from all the regions of the world. It would have been different if we come together and say, okay, guys, I asked my friend that is in the north, now working on these issues, to produce a document. This is it, please discuss it. It would have created a reaction. But because we did it in an inclusive manner, bringing people, I mean, the chair of the group was a South African lady, and then we have China, we have the US, we have Africa, we have everybody together. It gave trust. But then you also need a skillful leadership. And I think this is very important, because what I'm seeing in my campaign trail for the Director General, decisions about heading international institutions are not always taken by merit. And I know, well, I was not born yesterday. I know that there are bilateral considerations, there are geopolitical issues, there are questions of changes, support me here, I support you there. But it would be very important, because the times I have seen when the leadership is strong is also because it's the most capable leadership. In my time at the OECD, and then in the social and human science sector, it's very important that we do not throw, as I said always, the multilateral system, the baby with the bad water, because at the end is what we put there. And when members or leaders criticize multilateralism, it should be also self-criticism, because you get what you put, and you get how much you engage. And I feel this is very important. You can have the setting for a good engagement and good outcomes, but if somebody doesn't want to engage, then it becomes very difficult. What I have proposed now, because the world is so polarized and so fractured in so many ways, and as I said, not all the main powers want to engage in multilateralism, maybe for the time being we will need to go for a, how you call it, differentiated geometry, in which those actors that really want to push hard, we just run with the ball, and then we deliver. And finally, lots of agility needs to be embedded in the system. International institutions need to be reformed every time. It needs to be a state of mind, because things change. And many times you are full of rules and rules and rules and rules, and become so ineffective that just to deliver on something becomes impossible. So I think these are the elements that I see.
Great, Gabriela. It strikes me very deeply. I think you mentioned about working with people. With team, with people. That's very important. Important for the international organization leaders that you engage different countries, different cultures. So I know that you speak Spanish, French, and English, and Harvard graduate. But most important, I think, while you're working at the OECD, I had a first-hand experience to see how that engaging in different countries, and now at the UNESCO with even more members. So that kind of engagement capability with the people, with the country, it becomes so important. And second, I agree with you that the reform, we just can't really stand still. We have to go forward and innovative and push things forward, particularly in the today's very complex environment. So my second question would be, how did you come with this ethical, studies and research and policy arena of AI. As we all know, AI is developing rapidly, and it's also a competition among many countries, and it's also very uncertain. There's a risk. There's a closed system now. There's a open system, and then you can see a really fierce competition among major countries. But of course, so in the modern geopolitical conflicts, we see AI deployed. You see drones, you see AI operations everywhere. So in the future, we could, there's also many issues, ethical and safety risk and privacy, many things. So how did you come about on this issue? And as an international organization of the UN, to really look at those cross-border safety, ethical, the global standards, we need a global governance initiative on that. So we'd like to know where that initiative comes from and how that really has impact the development of the AI arena in the world.
You're completely framing this in a very nice way, because at the end, it always seems that we are in a catch-up game, no? We finally understood the way the black box was producing something, and suddenly the whole foundations of how the models were developed and changes, no? We were thinking about ensuring quality data to avoid discrimination, or to avoid that the system or the whole model is wrongly built, and suddenly you have synthetic data, no? Or suddenly you're scrapping the web, and therefore, what kind of conversation are we having about data if you're scrapping the web? And then we're starting to talk about sources. And there were no quoting of the sources. Now there's some quoting of the sources, but the quality of sources. So if you go in trying to understand the technologies, there is always the catching up, because it's very complex. And not all of us are experts on technology. But that's why we need to broaden the discussion, to put back the sense of agency in those that need to deliver for people. And in that sense, the best way I found to do that is to think about the outcomes and the impact of the technology. Because in that way, you are not trying to just define every single topology of what can go wrong, because I feel that's a very, very difficult. Of course, there are institutions that are doing it, and it's good, because then we learn. These institutes that were established by the US or the UK or Japan, China has many experts doing it to try to understand where things can go wrong, and to put the systems into test to ensure that we know how to control the downside risks, which is fine. But for me, it's easier to think, okay, if I use an algorithm, as the Netherlands did, to help me administer better all the social welfare system and to avoid abuse. And then I develop my algorithm, and it's fine. I mean, that's proprietary coding, that's fine. But then I get to see that thousands of migrants are being affected negatively. Then we say, excuse me, something is wrong with the model if you are just targeting migrants and cutting off their benefits. And it happens that it was biased. It happens that it was an overrepresentation of migrants as abusive possible. Then, in that very moment, you need to be able to ensure accountability. And this is my concern. My concern is not the technology. My concern is the protection system that the rule of law has provided for us on offline to be applicable online. It's not that easy, because at the end, and more with generative AI and with the open source, you have all these models that are accessible for everybody, and then you use one model and you develop another model, and then if something goes wrong, to allocate responsibility is not as straightforward as it looks. But at the end, these are the breaking points. The breaking points is the accountability of the systems and the possibility that you need to have, and the recommendation included that, which I think was bright, because it said, no, I don't need to be chasing all the coding, and I don't need to be chasing all the algorithms. On the contrary, there are thousands that are producing magnificent outcomes everywhere. I don't need to know. But if something goes wrong, I need to be able to establish a liability system that will help me redress the situation and compensate those that have been affected. If you organize the thinking in that way, of course you will need to be advised by people that understand the coding and the technologies. But at the end, it's more structured in a way that we can address it, not in a very complex manner.
Great. Good. Okay. So my my final question before I open to our expert and our friends is that UNESCO is about culture, education, civilization, and all those soft power, using Harvard professor Joseph Nye, who just passed away, and as you are also a Harvard alumni. What I would like to know is that as a strong candidate for UNESCO future DJ, so what's your vision for the future of UNESCO? And with now we are in a more hard power filled world now, and also with AI. But what about those soft power of civilization, education, culture, talents, all those things? So I think we need to really use the soft power to balance the hard power. There's too much hard power these days. Everybody's driving up the military budget, but let's really come back to the basic of the soft power, using the culture, empathy, sympathy, and also, those more, people-to-people exchanges, student tourism, historical sites and heritage sites, and all those things that UNESCO is doing, that we can push the world to be a more safe place to live. So that'd be my final question.
Well, I would say that it's a safe place to push for multilateralism, which is very interesting, because I was at some point as Sherpa of the OECD, in charge of tracking trade measures, in charge of tracking the financial crisis and the financial system meltdown and the financial reform and the tax reform. And I'm very happy I'm not now because it was tough enough. I feel that this is the time exactly to enhance the impact of UNESCO, because UNESCO proposed exactly what you say, another way of connecting humanity in a shared vision, because culture, education, science bring us the definition of what means to be human. And it's not trade, it's not exchanges, it's not the maximization of profit or revenues. It's exchanging who we are, where do we come from, where is our history, where is our memory, where is our common future, what makes us the same as humans? Well, creativity, learning, exchanging. And I feel these are very powerful tools, as you say, if we deploy them in the right way. Because again, as I said in the beginning, it's all about humans around the table that are joined into a really sharing the urgency of delivering for good. It's the same on the other areas. And so what I want to do is to have UNESCO doing a quantum leap of the kind of services it has provided in the last years. First, to continue building the question of the technological transition and doing it in a really much more human values based, because that's gonna divide us more, or it's gonna bring us together more. No doubt about this impact, because the technology is redefining the whole societal engagement and economic activities and everything. But then education, but stepping back, education for what? For the past decades, education has been the platform that will equip young people to get a job, to be competitive, to have individual success. No, I think we need to go back to education for citizenship, for peace, for critical thinking. And it's very interesting because these tools that are important for the societies living together are also the tools that will help us master the technology. Because this critical thinking, this consciousness of what is the impact, the outcomes, it's very important. So education, quality education, but broader in the sense of what kind of humans we want, which is not only the homos economicus. Culture, fine to register the heritage sites, but I would love to have more investments in culture and to bring culture to life, to take it out of the museums and to engage people with creativity. Because sometimes when I came to China in the G20, every time the Sherpas will organize a huge presentation of the music, of the dances of the different regions in China. My God, you feel Chinese. You're sitting there, you're looking at that, and you're like, that looks very Mexican in certain ways or not. I think that we need to bring a culture more into our development paths. And this is what I call the inclusive part of my program, because my program is inclusiveness, innovation, and impact. The second part on innovation is to really, really take advantage of the quantum leap that scientific endeavors is having for some countries to benefit everybody. And to ensure that we have open science and that we protect scientists and that we protect freedom of speech. Because the problem is that we're having this mounting protectionism, not protectionism, well, protectionism, yes, populism, dogmatism, ideology, digital platforms that are not helping, misinformation, and I think that freedom of speech and thought is very important. And by the way, we just got the ethics of neurotechnology recommendation approved, so I'm very happy. And then the final point is impact. Impact, impact, impact. So inclusion, inclusiveness, innovation, and impact. That's my proposal for the UNESCO of the future.
Great. Inclusiveness, impact, and also a very good way of making future UNESCO even more influential in the world and more beneficial to the world as well. So appreciate Gabriela, really very candid but also warm comments. And now I'd like to ask our expert we had today, perhaps maybe Professor Zhang from University of Political Science and Law, and I know you're a professor on the Data Law Institute, but also an expert on artificial intelligence. So what's your comment or question for our guest, Madame Ramos? But also after that, I ask Professor Zheng to also to raise the same question. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos. It's a really great honor to meeting you. Let me introduce myself. My name is Zhang Linghan, and I'm a law professor from China University of Political Science and Law. And also, I am the colleague with Professor Zheng Yi. We are both the member of a UN high-level advisory body on AI, and we are the two Chinese members. And I'm very happy to be here because during our work in the UN high-level advisory body on AI, we sought out all the very influential AI global initiatives. And we noticed the earliest one is the OECD AI governance principle, and the second earliest one is the UNESCO AI ethical code. Oh, the first time I know it's all initiated by you. It's so honored to meet you and to have this opportunity to have a conversation with you. And my question is also about the UNESCO's future, and I wish you good luck to your running of the DG. I really like your slogan, inclusiveness, innovation, and impact. As you mentioned in the beginning of your speech, you mentioned that UNESCO is very famous for the world heritage and very famous for the civilization culture, but not that famous for the science. And actually, you have led such a very great job on the global AI governance, just like I mentioned, OECD and UNESCO ethical code. So my question would be, if you would be DG or in your future work, how would you like to enhance the impact of UNESCO's on the science section? I mean, you have done so much great job led by UNESCO and exert such a great impact on the global AI governance. So I think maybe in the future, the science part and global AI governance part would be the very important part of the UNESCO's future vision. So I would like to know how would you design to do it. Thank you.
Perhaps Professor Zheng could also.
No, well, great to meet you, and congratulations. I love your work for the advisory board, and I love it more because you quoted UNESCO. It was great. You made an amazing job with those two reports, and also the contribution that you did to the Global Digital Compact. So congratulations. I think that the science, first and foremost, international organizations can help to set up the agenda. I think that science is not as visible as it should, and scientific operation is just somewhere down the road. We do it sometimes. It's time for us to call countries accountable for their science ecosystem, for the investments in science and the protection of scientists. But also, it would be an amazing moment for UNESCO to launch scientific missions. There's long time since we did something of the sort, but when we did that, we established the CERN, which is this accelerator of particles in Switzerland. That was a huge joint collaboration. Why don't we launch scientific missions to discuss certain issues? Let me propose just some of these issues that I actually been discussing in the ethics work, because I have this committee of experts on ethics of science and technology and the International Bioethics Committee. One of the things is the capacity that we have to modify the climate, the environment, no? Technologically, now that's possible. And some institutions, particularly in the US, are looking at the way, if you remember when Iceland got this volcano erupting, and then it covered the whole world with the particulars that were prevented the worst solar rays to come in. And then it get these ideas for scientific people to say, oh, we can do that. And if we do that, maybe we have another possibility to control the climate change. First, it feels like very scary, no? It's possible, but it's scary. Second, what if we get it wrong and we freeze the world? Third, who's gonna decide when should we use it or not? Those that can do it, there are 3 people in the world. How do we ensure that we organize an inclusive conversation on these issues? And that's where UNESCO needs to be present. As we did with the ethics of neurotechnology, to think on very important scientific trends and discoveries that should not be the matter of the people that have the capacity to do it, but that should be inclusive because it will affect all of us. And the other part is to call the attention that because of the way the science ecosystem internationally is organized, it's very difficult for some institutions in the Global South to be better represented due to the requirements and the issues. And so now you have 80% of the scientific outputs being just produced by the G20. And if you restrict the issues, it will be only, again, China, the US, the UK. This is lacking the diversity that we need of knowledge, of understanding, of vision, of ideas, of ambition, of the Global South. And therefore, I think that there is a very important role that UNESCO should play in bringing all knowledge to the table to try to learn from each other. And one of the angles, for example, that has been always commented but never structured in a very good way is indigenous knowledge on so many things. How do we codify that? How do we bring it together? There's a full scope of issues that UNESCO should be doing. And I don't mean to duplicate work of other institutions. The OECD is producing the most incredible outlooks on science. That's perfect. We are producing an amazing report every year on women and science. That's our leading thing. Let's cooperate among each other. And then the other part is how do we bring notions and publications that will change the way we think about things. I was enjoying my time in the social and human science sector because I would bring thought leaders that will propose the most incredible things that you wouldn't even think. We brought, for example, Hartmut Rosa, who is a philosopher, to deliver his speech on the new social energy. I have never ever talked to a philosopher that way. I don't even know if all the auditorium understood what he was saying. But let's try to challenge ourselves in our knowledge, and I think UNESCO can really provide with that platform to do it.
Okay, so Professor Zhen Yi, you have a comment question?
No, I don't really have a question, but to show my support and to review some of our collaborations, I think, which is really not beneficial only to myself, but also what actually can be done by having a platform as UNESCO. So I wanted to review a little bit about how we actually start of the exploration of the UNESCO ethics of AI recommendation. It becomes as a fight between me and Professor Emma Ruckamp, which is truly interesting that the Secretariat wanted to initiate the discussion, and then they wanted me and Professor Emma Ruckamp to co-lead the basic fundamental values of ethics. So we mail each other. We never get any reply from each other. For the problems of internet connections, email trashes, so we never get any reply. And then I started doing some survey. People were in the group were actually being in the survey, and Professor Emma Ruckamp said, "Hey, how can you actually start a survey without me?" And then Professor Emma Ruckamp was like, "I don't want to work with this guy." And for me, I was like, oh, she never replied my email. And then our common colleague, T.W. An from the ethics committee, and then he was like, so guys, what's really happened? And then I was like, you never replied my email. And Emma was like, oh gosh, you never replied my email, and you started everything. So it starts with misunderstandings. This is all about the world. The world is full of misunderstandings, unintended harms to each other. And then we'll have to solve this. So the Secretariat began the exploration by solving a problem between us two. And then what's really happening is that me and Emma co-chair working group, working very nicely, and I learned quite a lot from her. So the conclusion from the working group, which I like the most, is the principles of interconnectedness, living peacefully in a just and interconnected world. So this is a proposal from me and Emma all together. So when I propose living in harmony among technology and human, and Emma was, and everybody likes it because they were like, I remember the one of the chief of the secretariat, Daphna, was like, oh, this might be one of the non-Western values put into the UNESCO documentation, which is perfect because there are too much Western values, not so much about non-Western values. And Emma was like, I like it very much. It's not only from China, Korea, and Japan in general, from Asia, but also deeply rooted into South Africa. When you talk about living in harmony, actually in Ubuntu in South Africa, we've been talking about interconnectedness. We've been talking about individuals and the relationship to a greater whole. So we feel that it would be much, much better to add the value of interconnectedness together with living in harmony and peacefully. And then I remember like last year when we have the UNESCO Ethics of AI conference, to establish the AI ethics without borders, and Gabriela had 2 candidates working with her. So she selected 1 boy and 1 girl. The boy is me, and the girl is Emma. So now we've been very close friends. Now we, for international travels, so I always got emails from Emma. And so she was like, will you attend this? And I was like, I'm in. So she will participate that. Last year, when I invited Emma to the World Internet Conference, a China-based international organization, to actually participate in our AI safety and ethics program. So the guy got too much work for Emma, and Emma said, I quit. I cannot, take this. And then I emailed Emma by saying, can you just, stay with the team just to support me? And I don't give you a must work. It's all about your choice. And Emma was like, I'm only staying for you. This is the only reason why I can show my support. So we become starting as to fight with each other, and then to actually draw a conclusion of living in harmony and interconnected world, and to support each other. So I think this is something which I learned from the UNESCO trying. And then Emma was like, although we're very different, I still wanted to collaborate with you. And then I was like, can we just stop as, although we're very different, why you think that we're very different? And then she was like, oh, because I'm from Africa, you're from China, we have very different cultures. So this is true when you apply for UNESCO World Heritages. You have to show your uniqueness of your of your cultural heritage. Otherwise, you will not be named as UNESCO World Heritages. And then I'm challenging the system by saying, can we also talk about the commonalities? Oh, of course, for all the World Heritages, we have differences. We have uniqueness. But it was the human culture, fundamental human values and cultures that interconnected us all together. So by that, for the UNESCO Ethics of AI recommendation, we're recommending not only using AI to do World Heritage, to cultural heritage, but also to use AI to promote cultural interactions. So last but not least, I wanted to show my support by saying that for future of UNESCO and the relationship of UNESCO and China is that China need to reestablish a more effective framework to collaborate with UNESCO in a way that now the contact point is at Ministry of Education. But I would propose that we need a stronger institution, let's say, to weave a network of collaborative ministries, let's say by Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to work together with Ministry of Education, Ministry of Science and Technology, and Ministry of Industry and ICT, so that, well, because UNESCO work for education, science, and cultures, and now Ministry of Education mostly work for education. So I would propose that a better coordination mechanism from China could make it stronger support for the UNESCO vision, so that many of the practices, actions from UNESCO can be grounded into this reality. Well, I'm gonna finalize my final words by saying, when you establish the ethics of neurology, of neuroscience, I was asked by the Secretariat by saying, so here are the candidates. Do you have any vote? Do you have actually any recommendations? And I was like, find the one who is a neuroscientist by nature, but is also very politically very powerful, so that he can help to do the implementation of these ethics of neuroscience. Well, because I have just been exploring this ethics of AI trying, so that I know that I need to be more powerful to do the implementation. So my I think they adopt my recommendation to invite Professor Qingming Lo, who is the president of the University of Hainan and a top-tier neuroscientist in AI. So I think the Chinese government should give more support for the implementation of ethics of AI recommendation as a starting point, but not only that. But with this as a practical example, that China could consider to have a stronger institution, a much effective collaborative way to not only to interact with UNESCO, but really, as Gabriela said, that the UNESCO's work informing the member states what you should and should not do. And I think action implementation is the key for the future, leaded by the thought leadership from experts organized by UNESCO. Thank you.
Okay, good. Yes, okay.
I think that's a beautiful reflection because, as I said at the beginning, it's all about people. It's all about people challenging or working together. And I don't know if there are other questions, but at the end, I have a comment on that.
Okay, maybe final, we have a CGTN, have any questions? Yeah, maybe just read your questions and then we'll conclude after that.
Thanks for the speech, and I'm a journalist from CGTN. And I have a question for Ms. Ramos. UNESCO's strategy for the digital transformation of education highlights the need to prevent AI technology from exacerbating educational inequality. And in the context of popularism of generative AI, and how does UNESCO promote member states to establish a cross-cultural data governance framework? Thank you.
I think that's, if we get the relationship between the technology and the educational systems right,
Yeah.
I think that will be a huge success. Because in a smaller scale, it represents the whole of the impact of the AI in our world, in our lives. But if you nailed it down towards the education systems, there are these questions, as you say. First, how do we ensure that this is not only for the lucky few that are connected, that know how to use it, and that then can apply it to enhance their own capacities to learn? This is at an individual level. But then is the school system, professors, teachers, that might be able to be prepared to use it and to enhance the learning experience of kids, or not, because they're completely alien to any technological device. And this is very interesting because, again, the conversation should not be about the technology, because we can develop, in my perspective, it would be wrong to ban the technology in the school, like using generative AI. Why would you just ban it? I would actually frame it in a way that helps the students to perform certain tasks, as long as it's transparent and there is declared and all of these things. But the fact is that I still remember at the OECD we did a report looking at the countries that were introducing more technology in the classroom, and then comparing that to the education, to the student outcomes. And it seems that those that were introducing more technology were declining in the performance, because they were talking about the technology. They were not talking about the organizational changes that need to be put in place in the school systems to introduce the technology that they will need to develop for the purpose of that class. Because it's not just to go to the market and use any technology. You need to develop content that is culturally aligned with the classroom. You need to use the own language, for example. You need to even use visuals that are appealing to the kids of the certain region, country. And therefore, it's like when you introduce technologies in the businesses, it's not about the technology, it's about the changes inside in the mindset of the leaders of the business, in the capacities of the workers, in the infrastructure that you need to put together. And therefore, what we say about introducing technologies in education is about reforming education to use the technologies. Because at the end, you cannot, and this is the case, if you are trying to prepare the kids just to deal with generative, well, generative is now the past, no? There will be something else. What we need to teach them is adaptability, is anticipation, is resilience, is all of these elements that will help them to navigate a very rich technological environment without losing sight that what we're doing is to enhance the learning process. And then, to your point, the final issue is not rocket science. If you have schools that are lagging behind, invest more in those schools. If you have countries that are lagging behind, invest more in those countries. So it's not rocket science, but sometimes it looks like it's very complicated. But very good question. We have the guidelines for introducing AI in the classrooms, but again, it's training the teachers, preparing the school, doing the content, culturally aligned, etc., etc.
Okay, thank you.
Good. So probably we're running out of time, but I think we had a very good discussion this afternoon. We had Madame Gabriela Ramos. You know, she made a special trip to China to also. I mean, I know you've been here before, but this time as in a capacity of Assistant Secretary General, but also running for the future Director-General on this UNESCO important organization. To let us know your ideas, your experience, and of course your vision for the future, the UNESCO, but also all the innovation and leading works you have done in the past. I think this is really a great occasion for all of us to understand better your perspective and also your insights. So this is really a very good discussion, and then also we want to keep this into part of the CCG Global Dialogue. Which has been running for the last 5 years, and dialogue with almost 100 global leaders and experts and also politicians. So it's really great. So probably to conclude, I hope that you have some concluding remarks, and before Dr. Mel give her appreciative thanks to you. So maybe we'll give the final words to Madame Ramos, please.
No, I was actually reacting to what she mentioned, because beyond all of these challenges that we need to confront in terms of the technological transition or the climate transition or the demographic transition, of all these transitions. So we humans are subject to a lot of transitions at the very same time. But the fact is that we need new ideas. We need new ways of doing things. We need to detach for common wisdom that actually has not delivered great success in many areas, on the inequalities front, on the climate front. And therefore I feel that this exchange that you had with Emma, no? The question of interconnectedness, the question of harmony. And then you bring the harmony to the table, and the Western countries, and we don't like that because it's very Chinese. And then they come with something else, and the Southeast Asian don't like that because it's very Western. All of these things are what we know. But I feel UNESCO in the future would have this capacity to really try to bring all this knowledge together in a way that help us understand how do we build a much better future? How do we ensure that is not, and I would really think about rethinking the economy, because this is where the things come from, because individual success is rewarded, because it's competition, because it's maximizing my benefits over your benefits, because it's the revenue and the profit-driven technological developments. And I think that we really need to change the incentives to bring all of those dimensions that matter for people that are not very well accounted by our economic models or our decision-making models. I was in Iceland with the Well-being Forum, and I was really impressed. After COVID, one of the issues that we discovered is that humans are not only workers or consumers or producers, humans are also people that like to relate to each other. And the way we dealt with COVID, trying to protect the body or protect the economy, dismissed all the spiritual, relational, societal, and this is causing really great pain to our young generation, which has a lot of mental health issues. So I think we are at a moment where we need to find new ways of building our societies, our economies on the basis probably of ethics, probably of philosophy, probably of understanding like the Ubuntu or the harmony, that we are part of a greater goal, and also that we are community and not only individuals, and that probably the community success might not be the same as individual success. But there's a lot of reflections to be done, and I'm sure that UNESCO has a role to play on that. So thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Perhaps Dr. Mel, you want to say a few final words of appreciation?
Thank you, dear Madam Gabriela Ramos, and your wonderful speech about this very important topic. We know this topic is such significant as it's a future-driven topic and open question to all the human beings. For every individual are so important. So highly appreciate what you said, and you brought a lot of stimulating new idea to us. And also we get together to understand this topic deeply, and we so much thank all of our experts from different places to participate today's dialogue. And dear Madam Ramos, do you know this is a fantastic dialogue series? Henry conducted a lot of dialogue with people like Lauren Summers, a lot of those people, distinguished people, and Joseph Nye, and many of those distinguished guests from different countries on the global governance. But today, I was so impressive about what you said about AI. That is fantastic answers and open question to everybody. Highly appreciate again, and thank you all of you participated today's CCG Global Dialogue, and we are so honored to have you again. Thank you all very much, and the distinguished expert like Professor Zheng Yi and Lin Han from China, as they are also the great senior experts on this topic. But CCG would like to engage more. UNESCO, this is a wonderful platform for the public goods, not just about culture, civilization, and AI, the new technology. It's a great question and topic. We would like to continue further discuss this again. Thank you all. Thank you.